Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for this special WHAS11 presentation. I'm Doug Proffitt, along with our chief archivist, Joe Federle, who has a special presentation he's put together for us today. Folks, I want you to take a look at this picture. Do you know what this is? This is the Brown Hotel. The Kentucky Derby was just 50 years old when the Brown Hotel opened. Joe, we're celebrating 100 years of the Brown Hotel's amazing history downtown.
That's right. It opened in October of 1923. They had a big gala opening, and Robert Worth Bingham actually was there 100 years ago. And when it was reopened in 1985, we put together a whole special because, as you were telling me before earlier, it actually closed in 1971, 2 years after J. Graham Brown died, and JCPS took it over, right?
It became the Board of Education headquarters right down there. Prime real estate at 4th and Broadway. The Brown Hotel was sort of in disrepair, and the Sealback wasn't back to its life yet. It had not been restored yet until that happened into the 70s. But you have found a treasure in the WHAS11 archive.
I had seen this a few years back. January of 1985, there was a conglomerate of people who came together to restore and refurbish the Brown Hotel back to the way it was before JCPS took it over. And we did this whole hour special about the reopening of it. Now, you'll see familiar faces like Mitch McConnell. He was only in office in the U.S. Senate a few days, actually, when this aired. You'll see, of course, Mayor Sloan. And
Harvey Sloan.
And Lydia Copeland was the host, and we all remember Lydia. She was the host of PM Magazine. And so it's really cool because I love this special and the fact that if we produced it today, we couldn't do anything like this is, because we actually talked to people who remembered the opening in 1923. Of course, they're no longer with us now, or chances are they're probably not with us now. And in 1985, we were able to talk to people who talks about the dresses they wore. Women would go to get special tailored dresses for this gala event they had. And in 1985, our founder of our TV station, Barry Bingham Sr., actually led the toast. And you'll see that in the special. And it was his father, Robert Worth Bingham, who actually did the toast in 1923.
Well, let's talk more about it after we see the special. This is what Joe wants you to see tonight, a special WHAS11 presentation. Enjoy it.
The regularly scheduled program will not be seen tonight. Stay tuned now for the Brown Hotel. The magic returns.
Louisville's 4th and Broadway, the dazzling white way, the heart of a growing city 62 years ago. In 1923, they turned on the lights in a bright new hotel, a gathering place for all of Louisville. The hotel became the place in this boomtown. It was exciting. It was bustling. It was fun. It was magic. It was the Brown Hotel. Tonight, the magic returns. Once again, Broadway's famous corner glows under bright lights. The lobby sparkles. The ballroom glitters. Fantasy is ignited. The tradition continues. The Brown Hotel. The magic returns. This special tribute to the Brown Hotel and to those who make her famous is sponsored in part tonight by Liberty National Bank. There are banks, and there is liberty. Now, from the Brown Hotel in Louisville, Lydia Copeland.
You can feel it in the air, and it's not just because the temperature is in the teens. It's an electric night in Louisville, and also not just because of all the lights here at 4th and Broadway. It will be a magic evening as the magic returns to the Magic Corner and to the Brown Hotel. Good evening, and welcome to the official reopening of the Brown Hotel and our special salute here on Channel 11. The hotel has new management, the Hilton Company, and new owners, the Broadway Brown Partnership. And we are saluting tonight. We hope our salute stirs your memories of the good times you may have had here. And we'll let you in on the good times that lie ahead. We'll tour just about every nook and cranny. And we'll see how the Brown has been brought back to life after 14 years. We'll meet a lot of the people who lived the dreams of the hotel's past, the people who made history in this fabulous old hotel. But right now, let's meet some of the 600 invited guests who are arriving here at the 4th Street entrance to see the Brown and be part of the reopening. Good evening, Governor Collins. How are you this evening? It's so good to see you. And your feelings about tonight's special event.
Oh, it's exciting, and I'm delighted to be a part of this reopening of a Louisville landmark. It's just fantastic.
Well, the state has been so instrumental in making all of this possible, and you must feel a very special sense of pride.
Well, this is a tribute to cooperation between the Commonwealth, Mayor Sloan and his administration, the people here in Louisville and Jefferson County, and the private sector. And I think this just shows how we're going to have to work together in the future in joint efforts.
So good to see you, and Mayor Sloan.
How are you?
Colin's fine.
Isn't this exciting?
It certainly is. What are your thoughts about tonight's festivities?
Well, it's the culmination of a 7-year dream. A lot of people have worked to make this moment a reality. I think Tom Simons in particular needs to be congratulated for his courage and his tenacity to see this thing through. It's bringing the magic back to Broadway.
Now arriving for this gala night, here's Mr. Gregory Dillon, who is Executive Vice President of Corporate Properties with the Hilton Company. He said just yesterday he flew in from business from London for the opening, and he is so very proud of the Brown Hotel. Also, James Sheeran, Senior Vice President of the Central Region for the Hilton Corporation, and Sal Guarno, the Vice President of the Hilton Central Division for Real Estate. Good evening, Senator. How are you? Welcome to this evening's festivities.
We're glad to be here. This is an exciting evening after these years of work to put the Brown back on his feet.
Good evening. Can we have just a moment with you, Mr. Cherry? Good evening, Dottie. How are you? How are your thoughts this evening about this wonderful event?
I'm glad to be back. It's been several years since I've been here.
Yes, and it's looking wonderful inside.
I'll bet, and I can't wait to see it.
And now we have arriving Mr. Bill Wilson, representing the Louisville Board of Aldermen. Mr. Wilson is the board's president and has been one of the big backers of the Renaissance. And now we have arriving Lieutenant Governor Steve Beshear and his wife Jane. Now arriving we have Mr. and Mrs. Tom Sturgeon and of course Fuzzy Zeller and Mrs. Zeller. Come right on over here, Fuzzy. Good evening.
A few holes.
Are you ready for some golf?
Sure. I'm heading down Monday, to be very honest with you.
Are you truly?
So I'm kind of anxious to get back to it.
Well, we hope you don't throw your back out on the dance floor tonight now.
Hey, listen, I only do the soft shoe. I don't do that boogaloo anymore.
Is he a wild dance partner?
I'll take it easy on him tonight.
And all the way from Washington, D.C., Mr. Jeffrey Finkel, who is Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development with the federal government. It was his department which helped out so much in the funding for the Broadway Renaissance. And now we have arriving in this party Mr. and Mrs. Tom Simons and Mr. and Mrs. Mansell Wiley. Mr. Simons is, of course, the chairman of Capital Holding, and Mr. Wiley is the chairman of the Broadway Project Corporation, two people who have been very instrumental in tonight's festivities. Well, most of the guests have arrived now, and you've met just a few of the 600 or so invited guests, people who have paid $500 a couple for drinks, dinner, and a dance, money that will go to take care of Theater Square, another part of the Renaissance of 4th and Broadway, and we'll tell you more about that later. But right now, almost everyone is up in the second floor lobby, so why don't we join them? This beautiful lobby with its magnificent ceilings, marble columns, and intricate brass grillwork has seen a lot of history. In the 48 years that the Brown Hotel was open, this was the place to be, and it was the place to be seen in Louisville. In October of 1923, when the Brown opened, Calvin Coolidge was president. You could buy a Ford truck for $490. Zev had won the Derby. Pushmobiles were the rage. And Houston Quinn was the mayor of Louisville. Louisville was America's 34th largest city in 1923, a thriving river town in the nation's heartland. Downtown was alive, and 4th Street was the place to be, day and night. On Saturday afternoons, 4th Street was bustling with shoppers heading for Stewart's, Selman's, or maybe Beston and Langan. Or perhaps the order of the day was lunch at Stewart's or the Seelbach and a matinee at the Majestic, the Rialto, or the Kentucky Theater, starring glorious Gloria Swanson.
But we'd go in town and stand on the Seelbach steps and watch everybody go by, say, just a preview of what was happening. I could walk through 4th Street in those days and I knew 75% by the first name.
Dancing was a favorite pastime of the flapper generation, and so in the early 20s, throngs of dancers spent their evenings in the Hawaiian Gardens at 4th and Broadway. On nights when it wasn't used for dancing, the floor doubled as a basketball court for the University of Louisville and semi-pro teams. Right across the street, on the northeast corner of 4th and Broadway, stood Soldier's Confectionery, a favorite spot for Louisvillians to indulge their sweet tooths since 1860. And in 1922, it became the spot chosen by successful young businessman J. Graham Brown for his magnificent hotel. Brown, a native of Madison, Indiana, moved to Louisville in 1902 and started the W.P. Brown & Sons Lumber Company. Over the years, the company's holdings increased to include hundreds of thousands of acres of timberland across the South, as well as a number of sawmills and creosote plants. While announcing his plans for the $3.5 million hotel, Brown said, "No finer site in the city of Louisville could be found for a hotel of this kind to be built. It has the advantage of facing the widest and finest boulevard in our city. And because of this wide thoroughfare, the hotel will be light, airy, and sunny." Before construction was even begun on the hotel, Brown once again showed his unflagging confidence in Louisville's future by announcing the addition of 172 rooms to the original 600, making it the largest and grandest hotel south of Chicago. In an effort to hurry his dream into reality, Brown offered construction workers a bonus if they leveled the building site ahead of schedule. After only 12 days, the job was done, and the wrecking company was promptly given the $3,000 bonus. Construction of the huge hotel continued to remain ahead of schedule, and the city marveled at its progress. Hotel architect Preston J. Bradshaw said, "The Brown Hotel is going up faster than any big building ever erected in Louisville." And finally came the announcement that the grand opening of the hotel would be held a week ahead of schedule on October 25th, 1923, less than 1 year after construction began. And as former room clerk and manager Rudy Sook remembers, that news set the town afire.
I guess the men tailors in this town were busy for months, same as women. They say the sewing room at Stewart's was busy for 2 months, that you had to make a reservation to get a dress made there, you know, for this event.
When I was invited to this, I had to go out and buy a new suit the first thing because I wasn't too fancy, but I wanted a nice conservative blue suit, see.
While Leo was out shopping for a new suit, his date, Rose, who would later become his wife, was combing Louisville stores with her mother, searching for a very special dress for the occasion. They finally found it in Selman's at 4th and Walnut. So special was the dress that after 60 years and his wife's death, Leo gave it to a Louisville museum.
It was kind of a green, and it weighed about 4 pounds. It was loaded with these rhinestone beads all over it, see? And of course, when they'd shine the lights, it would sparkle. It looked like the Statue of Liberty.
A few days before the grand opening, the former Prime Minister of England, David Lloyd George, was visiting Louisville and asked to see the newly finished hotel. Although the hotel wasn't quite open for business, the register was brought out so his distinguished name would head the list. That's Rudy Sook there behind the counter.
I took the job in the front office and registered the first guest of the hotel. The Honorable David Lloyd George. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning when I handed him the gold pen to sign as a first guest there.
Rudy also remembers the night before the grand opening, when Mr. Brown held a private dinner and tour for about 400 special friends and business acquaintances.
He had all his friends there, and they were, I guess, around 200 or 300. In fact, they come from all over to say they come out of the wood to attend this party he gave there that night. He enjoyed it. All those people come around, and I mean, for a man that was in a position that night, as these people from Louisville and all over the state come in to pay their respects to him, he was as cool and sharp, see? He was in fine form. I would say he was an old pro at that game.
And finally, on the following 2 nights, gala dinner dances were held at the hotel for those lucky enough to receive an invitation. The curious gathered both inside and outside the hotel, where Mayor Houston Quinn turned on a switch that illuminated Broadway from 1st to 11th Street, for the first time with modern lamplight. Inside, the hotel was also ablaze with gaiety and astonishment.
When they walked into that lobby, their jaws dropped. Those beautiful plants, palms and everything. I mean, that hotel had it. It had everything. And that was one of the biggest social events that was ever been in this town.
Oh, we were quite excited over going down there. When you went into the hotel, they were just like a private home, you know. Everybody seemed to talk to everybody else, and the tables were all over. We ate in the lobby, dining, you know, individual tables all around. And the hotel was just thrown open. Like a home, you could go any place.
We had over 1,000 guests there. The dining room, the ballroom, the alcoves were filled, the private dining rooms, even the floor of the ballroom. We had a Paul Whiteman unit of 12 men there, orchestra. And they gave the dance in the ballroom, and we had a local orchestra in the dining room, see? So it got off to a marvelous start. It was beautiful all the way through.
And it's amazing, it was only, I think, $7.50 a person, and included a sit-down dinner. Of course, you furnished your own drinks. See, it was prohibition, you bought your own bottle, and nobody really got tight.
I had never in my life seen a woman so intoxicated that she couldn't walk. And my eyes just about popped out of my head, because in those days, you didn't see much public intoxication among women.
Well, maybe she was feeling the effects of bathtub gin. Or perhaps that woman was exhilarated by the evening itself, as was Leo Ross's wife, Rose.
My wife got feeling pretty good. She lost one shoe. I think she was dancing and was flying around there. Her shoe went off. She couldn't find it, so she just kept on dancing with one shoe on. See? And she had a big, one of these big fans, about the feather fans, you know, and she lost the fan. But I went down to the hotel the next day, and I got the shoe and the fan.
And everybody was having such a good time, and it was so crowded. You can't imagine. It was just a very gala occasion, you know, for Louisville. I look back on it as one of the highlights, you know, things you remember.
Everybody had a wonderful time. I don't believe there's anybody there that didn't really was happy and enjoyed themselves and really had a happy time. I was expecting a big time, and I had it too.
It seems as if a big time was had by all who attended the opening gala. But that dazzling evening was just the beginning for Louisville's shining new jewel. As Louisvillians looked over the headlines the next morning, it's quite possible that many of them chuckled as they recalled an article that appeared in Harper's Magazine the previous year. It described Louisville as a snobbish old lady, living in the past, an overgrown country town, complacent, myopic, and provincial. J. Graham Brown's 15-story architectural marvel standing proudly on the corner of 4th and Broadway was glaring proof that Louisville was looking ahead to a bright future. And Louisville is still looking ahead to a bright future. While J. Graham Brown forked over about $4 million of his own dollars to build the hotel originally, these days the stakes are a little higher. It's taken a lot of public and private investors to come up with more than $46 million to complete phase 1 of the Broadway Renaissance. And the Brown Hotel is only part of that phase 1. And now with me is Mansell Wiley, who is the chairman of the Broadway Project Corporation, the group that has really masterminded so much of this Renaissance. And you must have a lot of confidence in the revitalization of downtown.
Yes, I certainly do. I think we're on a roll, as many people say. I think the athletic statement that says the big mo is in our corner right now. You know, people like to live where the excitement is. And the excitement is certainly not only here tonight, but I'm sure will be here for many years to come.
Well, we all certainly hope that's correct. Of course, so much has gone into it. Since '79, I believe I've heard the figure, $600 million has gone into revitalizing downtown. We've had the Galleria, of course, the Seelbach Hotel, the Kentucky Center, and now this. What are your thoughts about all of that? Has it been worth it?
Well, it's not only worth it, but it's the first leg in 3 events happening this year. The second, of course, is the Theater Square, and then an event around the middle of the year, the Downtown Housing Project, which we feel will create a market for people who want to be next to the excitement of downtown, to the arts, and to the theater, and to the good dining. And that's what we have here.
Yesterday at 1 in the afternoon, they cut the ribbon to officially open the famous old Brown Hotel. It was a jam-packed hotel lobby, and I guess there may have been 1,500 people here to catch a glimpse of the magic. Host of the ceremony was Mr. Tom Simons, who is chairman of Capital Holding Corporation, and Mr. Simons is with me this evening. And I suppose you were the driving force behind so much of this. And apart from being proud of the hotel, you must be proud of all of the people you gathered together for this venture.
I think it's really a community effort, Lydia, from labor, management, business, the community, state, city, county, federal government, everybody. And it's a great thing for Louisville, I believe.
And you rarely see all of those groups come together so wholeheartedly for something like this.
We didn't lose a day or an hour of time because of labor problems. And just everything has been marvelous. We're under budget and ahead of schedule. So,
congratulations to you for that. That's a major accomplishment in itself. We hope you have a very merry evening tonight.
Thank you. It'll be fun. It's fun just looking around and seeing everybody so happy.
Well, thank you for all of your good work and your dream of seeing this happen for us. And later on, we'll be taking you on a tour of the Brown Hotel, so stay with us.
200 years ago, this river was the new highway west. Thousands rode her waters to a new life until they came to this spot, the falls. Here, the journey meant walking on the land. And out of those countless footprints grew a great city, Louisville, a dynamic blending of people bound together by a will to succeed and supported by Liberty National, following the footprints of Louisville for over 130 years. There are banks, and there's liberty.
Each day's a new start, 11 turn to us. Feel pride and take part, 11 turn to us. See what we're showing, cause it's worth knowing. Action, 11 turn to us. More facts and faces, whenever you turn to us. Exciting places, 11 turn to us. See more, that's all new, all Louisville turns to. Action, 11 turn to us. You'll feel the spirit whenever you turn to us. See it and hear it whenever you turn to us. The world is yours to reach out and turn to. Action, 11 turn to. WHAS turn to. Action, 11 turn to us.
This is the 4th Street entrance to the hotel, and for over 40 years you had to walk past doormen Herman and Burdette Bullock to enter the Brown. The tips were better here than at the Broadway entrance, so the brothers took turns at each of the two doors. Now, John Robinson will be manning the door during the day. Hi, John. Once you were inside this first floor lobby, it was alive with guests of the hotel and patrons of its shops and restaurants. In the early years, there was Hafner Brothers Jewelers, Abel Flower Shop, and the Brown Hotel Coffee and Pastry Shops, to name a few. Later on came Rebecca's, a popular women's clothing store, and the Brown Hotel Tea Room, a favorite lunch spot for shoppers and moviegoers.
For lunch, you would go to the tea room after you were shopping. Stewart's and Salmon's and all the great spots, and Rebecca's.
And every Friday we came at lunch to the Brown Hotel, and we had lunch, generally a grilled cheese sandwich and a milkshake, and then we went to the movies. And that was a very special time for us.
Well, this first floor lobby will come alive once again when the cafe opens and the new shops finally get settled in. There's going to be a hair salon called Strands, a tobacco shop called Tobacco with a Twist, Martin DeStefano Floral Designs, and later on a travel agency and men's and women's clothing stores. But new looks and a fresh coat of paint can't wipe away old memories. And there is one memory that still remains vivid for many Louisvillians after nearly 50 years. And that is that once upon a time, you could row a boat through this first floor lobby. The date, of course, was 1937, the year of Louisville's catastrophic flood. Torrential rains during the month of January caused the Ohio River to crest at 34.2 feet above flood stage on January 27th. And the streets of downtown Louisville became canals. Of all the visions brought to mind by the date, pictures of rowboats floating along 4th and Broadway are probably some of the most memorable. The Brown Hotel, standing there on the corner, had seen the water rise inch by inch. And finally, inside, the management told the employees they had a choice to make.
As the water started to come backing up, coming in the basement, well, they told everybody, you know, that wanted to stay, could stay. They had ballrooms, put cots and things all upstairs in the ballroom for people to stay. And those that wanted to go better leave to get out.
The workers, you mean?
Yeah, the workers. And some of those guests stayed there, you know. And then we had quite a few guests that lived at the hotel, and they stayed at the Brown.
And it was 3 foot of water in the first floor lobby of the hotel. There was a marker there for years how high that water was in the lobby.
It was so interesting to have the water so high in the lobby of the Brown Hotel. And of course, it was surprising because there were intervening blocks between the Brown Hotel and the City Hall were perfectly dry, and yet it was several feet deep in the Brown Hotel lobby.
Even though the first floor lobby was flooded, the upper floors remained dry, and so the hotel became a refuge for people who lived in nearby flooded areas. It was also a haven for people working downtown in connection with the flood. Barry Bingham Sr. fell into both categories. Forced to evacuate his Glenview home, he placed his 2 young sons and a nurse at the Brown Hotel, while he spent long hours down the street trying to keep WHAS radio on the air. At the same time, his wife Mary was in the hospital having their 3rd child, so it was a comfort to have the boys close enough for him to check on.
I wanted to see how in the world they were getting their meals, and they were having to walk down. They were on the 9th floor. They had to walk down to the grill room, which was the only place that was open, and there they would have meals by kerosene lamp light, and it was an eerie sort of spectacle, but to kids that age, it was just a strange adventure. You know, when you're that age, they weren't frightened or anything like that. In fact, they loved sitting and looking out of the window and seeing boats going up and down Broadway, which is what they watched.
They cooked back in the kitchen with wood, what little bit they cooked.
Nothing they could do but just try to enjoy there in the hotel. They'd play cards and different things, you know, then entertain each other. Water come up to that about, I guess, about the 4th or 5th step from the lobby coming up to the 2nd floor. And the bell captain, Elmer Weck, he claimed to call a fish. He had the fish hook and put it upstairs where he caught right at the bottom of the steps there.
That seems to be the most famous of stories to come from the hotel during the flood. Everybody, employees and guests alike, heard about the fish that Bell Captain Elmer Wick supposedly caught in the first floor lobby.
Oh, sure, that was a big story. People come in there and ask, look at that fish. It hung there in the lobby.
And for years they had signs there saying somebody caught a fish here during the flood of 1937.
Whether that was a myth or true or not, I never really knew, and I didn't want to know because it's such a nice story. And then, of course, Mr. Brown did go right along with the story and have a fish mounted. Whether it was the one that swam in that lobby, I don't know, but it's incredible to people that the water could have been that high, but actually it was. I just don't know whether they actually caught a catfish.
When the water finally receded, leaving a coating of slime covering the basement and first floor lobby of his hotel, employees say Mr. Brown took it all in stride.
I went back up there too, you know, right after the water went down. And we all helped out front there, you know. With those great big heavy push broom, turned the big holes loose, you know, washed all that mud, and it was a mess. Then one morning he come down the bottom steps and said, "Isn't this a mess, Bo?" I said, "Sure is." And we was all out there working, you know, getting that mud out. And he came down those steps and said, "This is a mess." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I hope I never see it again." I said, "I do too."
But one benefit for the hotel did come out of all that mess, and it was something that would make quite a difference here in the English Grill for years to come. A young man was hired to wash all the mud off the many dishes that had been underwater, and his name was Charlie Flaherty. He was the first of 6 brothers to work at the Brown, beginning as a dishwasher and ending up behind the bar of the English Grill. He started the famous Flaherty Brothers tradition that became an integral part of the English Grill's charm. A few years after Charlie started, the war began, causing a shortage of workers. And it's a sure bet that the management was glad they'd hired a man with 5 brothers.
Help was scarce, World War II. So we couldn't get any help. It wasn't flying at the back door. So I'd get in my car and go down home and pick up a brother, bring him back, put him to work. So that's the way we all got together.
Seeing a Flaherty behind the bar became a familiar sight in the English Grill, and so did the throngs of downtown businessmen who went there for lunch every day.
Oh, that was a marvelous place. Every day at noon it was loaded with the businessmen. I guess all the deals in Louisville were put over to English Grill lunch.
More business, I think, was transacted in the English Grill than in most law offices today.
Absolutely.
It was the hub of Louisville, and it was a place to see and be seen, where the elite meet to eat.
It was sort of the downtown club. It was almost like a club in that there were so many people who went there regularly.
And if you went in, you usually knew 15 or 20 people, and some of the older ones would know everyone in the whole bar.
It had the feeling almost of a men's club. It was a nice, rich kind of atmosphere. You didn't feel like that was a place where people went just to do business. They went there because they enjoyed themselves, and they did some business too in many cases.
Indeed, people did enjoy themselves in the English Grill, and not just the businessmen.
My favorite room was the English Grill. I mean, we would go there for dinner that had beautiful paneling, and you saw everyone you knew. That was something really special.
It had a reputation for good food, and I know on Wednesday we were always filled on account of the ladies like that chicken chow mein we put out.
Of course, no ladies could stand at a bar then. We didn't have stools. Brown believed that if you standing up, you could drink, and when you sat down, you'd quit. So he never had stools. And a lady had to be at least 3 feet from the bar.
Well, a lot of things have changed since then, but there still won't be any stools here at the bar. By the way, this is the original English Grill bar. It had been over at Charlie's restaurant on Main Street, but the owner sold it back to the Brown Hotel because the English Grill just wouldn't be the same without it. It is in a different spot here in the room, but it's still the same handsome bar that the Flahertys stood behind for so many years. Now, the English Grill will be serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. However, when the cafe opens downstairs, they'll take over the breakfast service. If the English Grill was thought of most as a businessman's meeting place, the Bluegrass Room here on the other side of the lobby was more of an entertainment place.
Then I used to go quite frequently to the Bluegrass Room where they had good dance bands, you know, and in fact they had sort of nightclub acts there quite frequently too that were very good, dancers and things of that kind. Bluegrass Room was always fun to go to. It was a special evening when you took somebody there.
Well, that was a great courting place. It was a wonderful room for dances, and they had floor shows, and it was the elegant place. That's where you would save up your money and blow it on that night in the Bluegrass.
I think all of us who lived in the late 30s found the Bluegrass Room a very exciting spot. And it was marvelous. They had good dance bands, a floor show twice a night, and it was wonderful. My idea of a good week was to come 6 out of 7 nights.
It was about the only place in town that was assured of having a floor show at least 6 nights a week. It was good. They were good shows. We had a good booking agent who was able to bring us good shows.
I can remember an entertainer in the Bluegrass Room. He was one of the very best I think I've ever seen. His name was Woo Woo Stevens, and he played the banjo, and he would be up on the stage, and he would have everyone in the room singing his songs. It was marvelous. He was great.
It was just something you looked forward to, and people would get dressed up, and that was it in Louisville.
Well, the Bluegrass Room is going to be a different sort of place than it was before. Now, the renovations aren't finished yet, but when they are, this room will be used mostly for private parties, banquets, and meetings instead of as a nightclub. Now, those of you who used to frequent this place shouldn't despair. In February, the hotel plans to begin serving Sunday brunch once again in this fabulous room. And while we're on the subject of food, I'd say that Peggy Heegert, the new chef here at the Brown, has quite a reputation to live up to.
Well, I'm nervous and I'm also excited. I come from an entirely different area than Louisville. So I think with my ideas as combined with the old ideas, we can come up with some pretty exciting things.
We've been looking for a good hot brown ever since it closed, and I hope they'll have it again.
2 or 3 places put out hot brown now, and it ain't nothing like the brown. They try it, but it don't compare to the brown.
People in Louisville have always tried to duplicate it, and they can never do it.
I've never had a hard roll like they serve at the Brown Hotel since, and I hope they can bring it back.
So you are going to keep some of the traditional menus of this? Like, for instance, what?
The hot brown. Nothing is going to ever outsell the hot brown, so we're just going to try and make it the best in Louisville. We're going to have to. It started here, and we'll make it one of the best.
Are you going to keep using the old recipe, the same
We're
original?
starting out with the original recipe. Now, where that leads us, I don't know.
What about the chicken chow mein and the rye roll?
The chicken chow mein, it used to be a specialty item on Saturday at the Brown. We're not particularly going to run that as of yet. We have a chicken chow mein on our banquet functions in case people would like to order that on their banquet functions, but no, not on any of our menus as such.
And the rye rolls?
The rye rolls are coming in.
I've been hearing a lot of comments about the rye rolls.
I have to.
In just a minute, we'll be back to tell you what Peggy has on the dinner menu for tonight's guest. Everybody here in the hotel seems to be overwhelmed by what they're seeing here tonight. Everyone's complimenting the magnificent renovations, and they are indeed. I am standing now with a man who holds a great distinction. This is his second opening of the Brown Hotel. He was here for the first event in 1923. Colonel Fred Levy, welcome tonight.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be back home.
Oh, I'll bet it is. And just how does this evening's event differ from that one back in 23?
Well, I don't know, except people are a little different. Some of them are a little younger than they were in those days.
And the hotel, how does it look as compared to those days?
I think the Hilton crowd have done a great job. It looked just like it did in 1923.
Do you have a special treasured memory of the old days here at the hotel?
Well, the opening night, I remember Judge Bingham and presided in a dignified way, and I was very much impressed.
And was there a favorite room? Did you come here to dance? Did you come for the music or the food?
For the dance mostly, and then the music, and then the food.
Will you be dancing tonight?
I'm going to try to.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
With me now are Marlene and David Grissom. Marlene is the chairperson of tonight's festivities, and David, with Citizens Fidelity, is one of the partners in the Broadway Brown Partnership, and you both must just be ecstatic over tonight's event.
We really are. But I'd like to say I couldn't have done it if I didn't have such a wonderful, wonderful committee and staff working with us. They were just super.
I'm certain there were countless hours that went into
really. But as you see, I think it's going to be a good success.
Have you heaved a sigh of relief? Are you going to party now?
Not yet. When the band comes.
She will at 11 o'clock tonight after the meal.
And what about you? You've been so much a part of the planning of all of this and seeing downtown really come back to life. Does that make you feel extremely proud?
Well, it's a special thrill, Liddy, because the Brown has been a part of history for many, many years, and to see it rejuvenated and to come back like this is it's something really special. We've enjoyed being a part of that.
And I know, David, you are one of the great crusaders for keeping the best people here in Louisville, and let's stay with this town.
Maybe this will help in that direction, Liddy. I hope so.
I keep hearing comments like, well, the English Grill looks just about the same, and remember when we went to that dance in the Crystal Ballroom? There are certainly a lot of memories floating around this hotel tonight, and if you come here and look closely, you'll see just how much work went into the remaking of the Brown Hotel. Over the years, the last years of the Brown Hotel before it closed, to be quite honest, the old hotel had just become run down. Fewer people downtown meant less income for the hotel, and finally, when it closed in 1971, it was a mess. The Jefferson County Board of Education bought the Brown for office and classroom space that year, but in 1979, they abandoned it, saying they'd had enough of the old worn-out building. The Brown sat empty for 4 years, until 1983, when renovation by the Broadway Renaissance began. Years of dirt, dust, grime, and cigarette smoke had to be cleared away. Artisans were brought in to oversee and perform the painstaking restoration, new plaster work, moving walls, painting, cleaning, refinishing, polishing, and painting some more. It was a huge job. Over $22 million to restore the Brown, and it's truly beautiful inside now. The rooms are fewer, bigger, and more modern, but the parts of the Brown which made it magic and sparkling are sparkling once again. And tonight, dinner tables have been set up all over the hotel. In just a little while, all 600 guests will be dining on Scottish salmon, sliced tenderloin with Bordelaise sauce, wild rice, Kentucky bib lettuce salad, and a mint julep surprise for dessert. But for the time being, most of the guests are still milling around here in the main lobby on the second floor. And the people behind the front desk there have a perfect view of the festivities. That desk has always been a great spot for people watching. And back in the early 40s, the war years, Boots Walker Frederick spent a lot of time there soldier watching.
I worked at the warplane, and I was working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and all I was doing is making money. I wasn't having a good time. And this friend of mine worked at the Brown, and all I heard from her is what colonel she went out with, where she was going tonight, where she's going tomorrow. And I quit there and went to work at the Brown. It was a terrific time to be young, as I say, to be 19, 20, and 21, and have all these handsome officers.
They come in by trains, you know, and they have arrivals. The big arrival would be in the evening, say 5 o'clock. And they'd be lined up from 5 o'clock till 7 o'clock, just lying and registered.
And it was something just to sit there and watch them, you know. But we never had any trouble with none of the soldiers at all.
And it was a well-known hotel. It was known as Louisville's main hotel. And so soldiers wanted to go there. And the other thing is that they were very courteous, and they had a real, genuine welcome mat out for the soldiers.
But you know, soldiers would come in there, and there'd be a lot of people at the bar that them soldiers wouldn't spend a dime. They'd buy them drinks, you know. And it was a very patriotic thing. It was a feeling. Because most of them had sons in service someplace, and it was unreal, the amount of business that we did in there.
While the war may have been good for business at the Brown, it also caused a shortage of male workers. And so the hotel began hiring more women. Boots's good friend, Dixie Sherman DeMuth, became the first female bellhop. And both girls had a slight problem with one of Mr. Brown's rules.
You could not date the guests. So that's why we used to send them over to the Silback. And regardless, we did date guests. And I was fired twice because of dating the guests. And rehired, of course.
But that's all we met were the guests.
If we lived it, you know, we lived the Brown Hotel, and that's where you met people, naturally. It was a wonderful time. I loved it.
Everybody, I imagine, that worked at the Brown can verify this, that we were just like a family.
That's
and
right.
you really
loved each other.
Really
we
hated
did.
to have 2 days off because you wondered what all happened while you were off.
There's no doubt that the Brown Hotel was an exciting place to be during the war years. But the hotel's most emotional day came with the announcement that the war was over.
Yes, the downtown was absolutely packed and jammed with people. In those days, people tended to go individually to where would they find out about it all, where would they hear the news, where would they see everybody. And they went downtown. And 4th Street was the place, and the Brown Hotel was the key.
Oh, yeah, that was something. The street was just packed all around the hotel, and everybody yelling and hollering and going on. So that was a big day around the hotel there. And the hotel was just packed. Go upstairs in the grill, the bar, and everything was just jammed like that.
Everybody loved everybody that day is the way it looked, you know.
And when I hit the street, I remembered nothing other than a bunch of soldiers picking me up and putting me on their shoulder and walking. It was just shoulder to shoulder, walking me down the street on their shoulder, and everybody screaming and yelling. And I had spike heel shoes on, and I lost one of my shoes. Never found it. People were just screaming and yelling and laughing and kissing and hugging. And it was the most, I've never seen anything like it, and probably never will again.
The Crystal Ballroom here on the 3rd floor was packed with happy people the day the war ended, and soon this dance floor will be packed again. Tonight they'll be dancing to the music of the Mike Carney Orchestra. Now, as soon as you walk into this room, you know why it's called the Crystal Ballroom. There are 5 magnificent crystal chandeliers that were brought here from Czechoslovakia when the hotel opened in 1923. In December, these chandeliers were shipped back from New York where they were being restored. Once here, they were meticulously put back together, a process that took days. But the Crystal Ballroom wouldn't be the same without these glistening chandeliers, and for over 4 decades, they looked down upon every kind of party imaginable, beginning in 1923 with the Brown Hotel supper dances.
Saturday night, we'd always have 700 or 800 people. They come from all over the state. It was the only big dance band around, you know. It was a marvelous event there the first half a dozen years, that hotel. Even after the first half a dozen years, that ballroom was going 3 or 4 nights a week.
I used to go to debut parties and things of that kind there, and it was the great place to go downtown. It was a beautiful room at that time, always has been. But it was sparkling and attractive, and it was a nice size. It was large enough not to be crowded, but it had a little bit of intimacy to it, which made it extremely attractive, I think.
I had the first date with my husband in the Crystal Ballroom. It was a medical fraternity dinner dance. It was a beautiful, great room with bright, vivid chandeliers, so brilliant. Marvelous place to have your first date.
all the clubs had dances here at the Brown Hotel. And there was this crazy friend of mine, and we were dressed up in our tux, and he wanted to go out on the roof of the Brown Hotel. And I'm terrified of heights, but I followed him. And he went to the very edge, and I found this pipe that came up through the roof, and I just hung on there for dear life and watched him go to the very edge of the...
Why did he want to go on the roof?
Well, neither of us had ever been on the roof of the Brown Hotel. So we thought it was the thing to do.
Oh, it was great, you know, to see the high school age kids with the girls with their corsages, the boys and girls all dressed up. A lot of them would come down and have dinner in the grill, you know, before the dance and all this. It was a big night, those Saturdays in the spring.
It's a part of all of our youth, and you always tend to remember things from your younger days with and look at them with rose-colored glasses. But in this case, the rose-colored glasses really were quite real. The place did look pretty. It did have a lovely, warm atmosphere. You did run into so many people you knew when you went there. Louisville was a much smaller city then than it is now. And when you went down there for a party or went there for lunch or anything of that kind, you constantly saw people you knew. There was a feeling that that was kind of the center of activity for this whole community.
This magic corner will once again become the center of activity in downtown Louisville as the Broadway Renaissance continues with Theater Square and Phase 2. We'll tell you more about that in just a moment. We're back now at the gala party to officially reopen the famous Brown Hotel in downtown Louisville. Another hotel, 296 rooms. Is there enough business downtown for all the hotels to survive? Well, the Hilton Hotel Corporation is managing the Brown for the owners under a 15-year agreement. Jan Larson, an experienced hotel man with Hilton, is promising service in the European style. That is, a lot of it. And he also is offering new menus. But of course, the famous hot brown will return. Larson thinks that another new hotel in Louisville will be good for everybody's business.
Another first-class hotel in downtown Louisville, I think, will benefit the existing hotels because there will be more first-class accommodation available, which I believe a certain type of conventions and corporate meetings will require, where right now they may not want to stay downtown because you cannot really accommodate them. Granted, there will be more competition for that business, and I think competition has always been healthy, and it will make us all do a better job, I think.
Rebuilding the Brown and the Brown office building next door is just the first step in a bold project to completely change the face of 4th Street. The plan was conceived by the Broadway Project Corporation, and the rest of the first phase includes an open space surrounded with elegant shops and restaurants, plus an outdoor performing area. It's called Theater Square, a place to enjoy urban life. It's scheduled to open in April, maybe by Derby time. When it's finished, this whole project will have cost $46 million, including the 476-space parking garage, which is attached to the Brown. Raising that kind of money wasn't easy until people saw the plans and started to dream. A public and private partnership evolved with investors from local, state, and federal governments to the Labor Union Pension Fund, Capital Holding, Citizens Fidelity, and First National Banks, the Courier-Journal Corporation, Downtown Development, the Brown Foundation, and Humana. Also involved with financing are the developers, the companies responsible for making sure everything gets done. They are Cranston Development Company of Pittsburgh and a Louisville company, STM Developers. Tom Sturgeon is chairman of STM, a Louisville native proud of his hometown and of what he's done.
Oh, I'm very excited and very proud that this hotel's back open, and I think it's going to be as important in the future as it was in the past. I can remember when I was a small child, my mother used to, of course, this downtown 4th Street was where you did your shopping for Christmas, and so many times she would bring myself and my brother down 4th Street, and we'd do our shopping all along 4th Street. I had my senior prom here, so I guess one of the things that motivated me as much as anything was the fact that I knew how important this hotel was to the history and the fabric of this community. And so that was an excitement enough to be involved in it. And then, of course, I think this whole area is very, very important in terms of the future growth of downtown Louisville. It's just so important that something was done with this hotel. So I really just enjoyed the opportunity to get involved in the project.
Tom Sturgeon's partner in the Brown Hotel and Theater Square project is Cranston Development Company, which developed Station Square in Pittsburgh, turning an historical but useless train station into a modern shopping and working center. The president of Cranston is Arthur Ziegler, and he has high hopes for the Broadway Renaissance.
Louisville's like so many cities. It looks nice, it's functioning from 9 to 5, and there's no real urban life. It's spotty. People are coming into the theater and then they're leaving, or they're going to a restaurant and they're going home. And what we need to create is street life, and Theater Square will do that. It's anchored with the Brown, and the restaurants in the Brown, the visitors to the Brown. But for Louisvillians, the real place is going to be Theater Square. We've made the parking convenient. We've created an intimate public space out there. And if we get the right mix of tenants, I think you'll just see it very lively at night. Station Square, for instance, in spite of all the offices and the shops and the hotels, the biggest moment of the week, when the most cars are there and most people, is midnight Friday night.
The developers hope that the Brown and Theater Square will keep the nightlife hopping in Louisville, too. Also part of Phase 1 of the Broadway Renaissance, renovation of the Ohio Theater marquee. It looks kind of lonesome there by itself, but it's part of 4th Street's history. They've cleaned it up, and inside, an ice cream parlor. And the Kentucky Theater, more history. Inside here, the highly acclaimed $1 million multi-image visual presentation, Kentucky Show. It's a fantastic trip through Kentucky, celebrating our state's history and its present. It's open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 6, and it's quite an adventure. While the Brown and Theater Square are designed to bring people downtown to have fun, Phase 2 of the Broadway Renaissance is designed to bring people downtown to live. This is an architect's model of this bold urban residential plan, a $65 million project that will be ready for apartment and condominium dwellers sometime in 1987. Marcia Lamb is the project director of the Broadway Renaissance.
Well, you're looking north on this model. Here's the Brown Hotel, and this is 3rd Street. And the focal point of this 550-unit residential development, which, as you know, will create the first residential community in downtown Louisville, is the crescent-shaped park that spans across both sides of 3rd Street. And, of course, the development goes all the way to 2nd Street on the east side, and it flows into Theater Square on the west side. The project will create, when it is completely developed, about 550 units. The first phase that you've heard so much about in the news is the area right here in the central portion, and that's 234 units, a combination of apartments in a townhouse configuration that are built around the crescent and will focus on that special open space. A very special little bridge with a walkway so that somebody could walk all the way from Theater Square up this grand staircase and across the crescent and over to 2nd Street. There also will be 30,000 square feet of retail shops circling the crescent with things like grocery stores, wine and cheese shop, bicycle repairs, the kinds of things that people would need to service their lives as they live in this development. The architect, Bruce Graham, who is an internationally known architect with the Chicago office of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, is very excited about the design, to say the least. The first thing he did when he came to Louisville was to go and see some of our older neighborhoods, and he fell in love particularly with Old Louisville. And the design is very traditional. It focuses on the use of brick and cut limestone, and every unit will have an outside garden or patio or both in some cases.
The Broadway Renaissance is not unlike what's happening in many other cities, utilizing the historic buildings or sites in cities, dreaming a dream, And then, like Dr. DeVries, implanting a vibrant new heart to bring life back downtown. It happened in Baltimore, a vital waterfront rebirth. In Pittsburgh, Station Square, using a useless railroad station. In Boston, Faneuil Square, a now bustling former series of rundown warehouses. Reversing the trend of the 60s and 70s, the people come back to the cities.
In the lobby of the venerable Old Brown Hotel, trumpets will be announcing a brief ceremony hosted by Tom Simons, chairman of Capitol Holding and a leader of the Broadway Project Group, which dreamed this dream for Louisville. Mayor Harvey Sloan of Louisville welcoming this addition to the rebirth of our town. Governor Martha Lane Collins speaking on behalf of the state of Kentucky, which helped so much in the funding and support. Mr. Simons presenting commemorative gifts to the mayor and to Mrs. Collins. And now, a toast by Barry Bingham Sr., whose father, Judge Robert Worth Bingham, 61 years ago, gave the toast which dedicated the original Brown Hotel. Here's Barry Bingham Sr.
But I don't want to talk about the past tonight. I really want to talk about the future, because that's what my grandson will be concerned with. Now, you know, this hotel was at the beginning an act of faith on the part of J. Graham Brown. That's why it was built, as an act of faith in this community of ours. Twice, when he was building the hotel, he added additions to it, and he said, when asked why he was doing it, he said, because I have confidence in Louisville. That was his reason, and a darn good one, which proved to be correct. Now, at some later date, there were some problems financially with the hotel, as there is with many. A bank threatened to foreclose, and here was Graham Brown's answer: go to hell. So typical of him. I can see him right now scuttling through this lobby. You know, he was a small, compact man, absolutely charged with energy and determination. We used to laugh a little bit and call him the Wizard of Oz, because he looked very much like the Wizard of Oz as he hastened around. And beyond that, there was a reason for that. He really saw Louisville as the Emerald City, as a place where anybody who's remembered the Oz books knows anything in the world could happen. That's what Graham felt about this town. And from the very beginning, this hotel was legendary and began to gather legends around it. One of the legends you've all heard was that a fish was caught in this lobby by Elmer, the bell captain. Now, I saw that fish. I cannot lie to you, I did not see it swimming. I saw it on the wall. It was there as a plaque, and where is that fish now, I ask you? It's the only thing I miss in the magnificent decor of this hotel was that wonderful stuffed fish. It should come back. Now, when my father was speaking on this occasion, he said, success is never an accident. It is a result of courage, character, judgment, and hard work. I add one more word to what he said. It's a result of vision. And those are the characteristics that Graham Brown had par excellence. Now, they're the same qualities, I submit to you, that have been shown by another generation of people here in Louisville. Not all natives of this town, some are not. They have shown these same characteristics and that vision, especially in rebuilding, reconstructing this magnificent showplace that we're standing in here tonight. So now I'm going to tell you that I think this is not only exciting in itself, it's a part of a still bigger project, the Broadway Renaissance. So the whole thing is spreading out from this magnificent center we're in tonight. Let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to join me in a toast. Would you please raise your glasses? I'm proposing a toast to the Brown Hotel of the past, so fondly remembered, the Brown Hotel of the present, of which we are justly proud, but most of all, the Brown Hotel of the future. I know it'll be a very, very bright one. Let's drink to it.
Barry Bingham Sr. with a warm toast to the new Brown Hotel, just as his father, Judge Robert Worth Bingham, toasted the success of the original Brown over 6 decades ago in 1923. Now, the guests are being called to a sumptuous dinner in various rooms of the Brown. And later, dancing as the lovely Crystal Ballroom comes to life once more. We'll be back with more of our Salute to the Brown in just a moment. Now in the lobby of the Brown Hotel on opening night, and with me is Marcia Lamb. Marcia, you look stunning.
Thank you, Lydia.
And Marcia is, of course, the project director of the Broadway Renaissance. Tonight is one thing, Marcia, $500 a couple. Of course, that money is going to go to support Theater Square. But after all of this, you have a lot of things planned to encourage everyone to come down here for free events, right?
We have about a month of activities. There will be chamber music in the lobby, some pianists. We'll have a number of events like that. Next Saturday night, there'll be another huge party sponsored by Preservation Alliance. That's only $25 a person. There'll be a big band in the Crystal Ballroom and bluegrass music in the bluegrass room, and a 50s and 60s band. We also have a white glove luncheon that's coming up in the Crystal Ballroom for people that remember the times when they would come downtown for lunch with their mother in their white gloves. And we have sold out that, and we're going to do a second one.
That is fantastic, and I'm certain that so many people do have memories. You've heard a lot of comments tonight. Do you have memories of the Brown back when?
Unfortunately, I didn't grow up in Louisville. I wish I did. But that's the reason that we had the book written, The Brown Hotel, The Magic Corner Returns, so that we could save all those memories forever and ever.
And that is a very special publication. Of course, your work has been fantastic, and you really deserve congratulations on tonight's event.
Thank you, Lydia, but I'm only one of many, many, many people, as you well know, from all levels of business and the public sector that have made this thing possible. Many people have believed in the Broadway Renaissance and made it happen.
Well, we certainly can understand why tonight, and we thank you for being a part of our program. And we want to thank all of you for being a part of tonight's festivities. We hope that along the way we have sparked some of your special memories tonight. We hope you'll be inspired to come down, as Marcia has mentioned, and participate, to take part in all of the free events that are happening here. The magic really has returned to the corner of 4th and Broadway tonight. Thank you all, and good night.
The Brown Hotel, The Magic Returns, has been sponsored in part tonight by Liberty National Bank. There are banks, and there is liberty. This special tribute to the Brown and to those who made her famous was recorded earlier this evening for broadcast at this time.
So I hope once again you enjoyed that special WHAS11 program that we broadcast in 1985. And again, Joe, 1985 was a big year. Why was that?
Well, that was the reopening of the Brown Hotel, and after it had been JCPS headquarters since 1971. A lot of people don't realize the Brown Hotel was actually founded by two brothers, J. Graham Brown and also T. Martin Brown. He actually passed away before it was opened, but when J. Graham passed away in '69, the hotel closed in '71, so it was not a hotel from then until 1985 when this special aired.
We should say you recently went to the 100 celebration,
That's right.
which was just
past Wednesday.
in October of this year, October
this month.
2023. I always love the hot brown. That's what everybody knows about it.
That's right.
The history of the hot brown, it started at this hotel as a late night snack for those who've been dancing in the ballroom?
That's right. The executive chef of the Brown in 1985 was a lady named Peggy, and she actually talks about how of course, out of all the different things they could bring back, they have to bring back the hot brown. It's known throughout the nation. I think even internationally it's served, and it's just a few blocks away from here. I had it last Monday, actually, and then later on I went to the gala, and it was beautiful. They had 1920s themed. People were dressed up in their 1920s clothes. It was great.
Didn't its ingredients come together and have something to do with the Great Recession, or the economy was depressed at the time and they were really just putting together what they had in the kitchen, or is that sort of more folklore?
Well, 1926 is when it was started. So 29, the Depression started. So I think people had already gotten their fill of the normal sandwiches that they normally had. I think it was ham and cheese. So they wanted something different. So that's when they came up with the idea of putting the Mornay sauce. And they put that with bacon and a hot brown. It was the turkey sandwich, and it was always a hot brown, open served sandwich, and it's delicious.
Now, you've sampled a lot of hot browns around Louisville.
Right.
Do they still do the best?
Of course, yes. They have the petite hot brown. I think that's very filling, but if you do the full hot brown, it's got to be $10 extra. It's delicious, though. It's worth it. And I didn't realize until recently when I was researching this, they actually have one of the top hotel bars in the nation. So that's where I had mine.
All right, and so now, of course, the Brown has had visits from presidents,
right,
movie stars over the years.
Oh, yeah.
The stars who used to perform at the WHAS Crusade for Children stayed there back in the day in the 50s because it was so close to the TV building.
Oh, yeah, literally just down the block. I mean, it's so easy to walk there. And you'll hear most of the people who'd come for the Derby. That's obviously their big season, but I mean, there's also times where people come for, A-listers come for concerts and everything else throughout the year. So it really, I mean, in the 1920s when it opened, and you heard Barry Bingham Sr. talk about this in the piece, I mean, there's so many histories that aren't around anymore to tell. For instance, he talks about how it was the social place to be in the 1920s, but also he remembered people rowing through the second floor lobby because in 1937, it was all underwater.
Flood. Yeah, the flood waters were right in this part of town. Cresting up toward the highlands of Louisville. Well, Joe, it's a fascinating discovery, and it's great. I always try to judge things by, how old is the Kentucky Derby? Kentucky Derby is going to be 150 years old this year. The Brown turning 100. It's amazing we have these institutions in this community that are still going strong.
Yep, and don't forget about WHAS. We're about to turn 74 next year. So, yeah, there's a lot of great history that we have in this community, and it's an honor to be a part of it.
All right, that's Joe Federle, our chief archivist at WHAS 11. We thank you for finding that, and I hope you enjoyed this great WHAS TV presentation.